Hi, everyone. I'm David Aragona. Happy to be joined this week by DRF correspondent and handicapper Marcus Hersch to take a look at the Bluegrass Day Pick 5 sequence. This is an all-stake sequence, races 6 through 10, now on Tuesday at Keeneland. This was supposed to be originally carded for Bluegrass Saturday, but as I'm sure you're aware at this point, with all of the precipitation in the Lexington area, Keeneland did postpone the first 2 days of the meet from Friday and Saturday back to Monday and Tuesday. And Marcus, same fields that were drawn on Saturday, but I think we're still waiting to see how much weather is going to affect the surfaces and the horses that participate in these races.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My suspicion would be that even with rain persisting through Sunday and unseasonably cool temperatures, especially at night, I think it's supposed to be 28 on Tuesday night or something. That just sounds awful. Anyway, it's just not conducive to drawing. That being said, by Tuesday, I expect the main track to be fast. They'll have plenty of time to work on that. And Keeneland sand-based turf course is notorious for draining quickly. They also use it a lot more than other places because they run so few days during the entire year. So I would think that the stakes would probably be staying on Tuesday. In fact, I had heard a couple of trainers said that they were told that was the intention, to attempt to keep them on. Now, obviously, that could change, but where we stand right now, I think that we can look at these as being on turf and probably a fast track.
Yeah, we'd love for these turf races to stay on the turf. And obviously, for the purposes of talking about a pick 5 sequence, you want them to stay on. Obviously, everything would change if those stakes did come off the turf, but we're still going to give our opinions. You can always play these as vertical wagers as we talk about our handicapping opinions for this sequence, even if it doesn't come together quite the way that we wanted to with these races staying on. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we do get these turf races in. There are 2 of them in the sequence, the Appalachian and the Shakertown. Well, Marcus, let's get right into the handicapping, and we're going to begin with race 6, the first of this pick 5 sequence. It is one of those turf races, the grade 2 Appalachian, going the 1 mile distance for the 3-year-old fillies. And I think there's going to be at least one likely scratch from this race. I believe it was you who reported Liam in the Dust is probably only going to run on the dirt. And there are a few horses in these turf races that seem like they might have been entered for the dirt, even though there are no NTOs in these races. Mark Casse, though, seems like he's got the keys to this race, Marcus. He's got a couple of the shortest prices on the morning line, and Nitrogen and Vixen that are both drawn down towards the inside, and they both won their last couple of starts in stakes company and just seem like the horses to beat.
Yeah. Excuse me. I would definitely prefer Nitrogen of the 2, but so will everybody else. I think she'll be probably a more defined favorite than 2 to 1. Actually, I don't think I fully appreciated this filly. I really liked Lush Lips in the Florida Oaks, and she definitely ran her race. And this horse just ran her down. She's really, like her Natalma, I have no idea what she was doing on the lead in that race. That is absolutely not how she wants to run. I am not paying any attention to that. Her Breeders' Cup was truly dynamic. I don't know if she was going to beat Lake Victoria, but I do think she could have been second if she'd had better luck. She finished great. Both in the Ginger Brew and the Florida Oaks, she just takes a couple extra steps to get completely wound up. I don't think she's like a super quick twitch miler type, but once she gets going, she really rolls. I think that certainly Keeneland will suit her better than Gulfstream. Tampa is a fairly long stretch, but this race to me, David, looks like it has plenty of pace in it, and I think the field's going to spread out enough. This horse is, she's done a lot of different things, come inside, between, outside. I just think she's the best horse in the race, who's coming in great form and is going to get the right trip. And I don't easily see her losing.
Yeah, let's go to Marcus's grid for this race, and you'll see that, Marcus, she's your only key horse here. And I get it. When I handicap this race, I see the exact same things with these 2 Mark Casse runners. Vixen's run just fine, but she's not been as clearly dominant when you watch the replays as Nitrogen has in her last 2 victories, despite them winning by similar margins. As you said, Nitrogen, she takes a little longer to get going, but once she does, she's got a really relentless finish under her. And I completely agree with your assessment of her Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies from last year. That felt like a race where she could have been right there at the end if they had ridden her with a bit more urgency, or if she hadn't encountered so much traffic. So she feels like the real deal. She's drawn inside. I guess course condition is going to be a wild card for all of these horses, because in this country, we just don't run over very soft or yielding turf courses that much. And even if they keep these races on, it feels like the courses are going to be no better than yielding. So that's just a minor concern I have about her as well as everybody else in this race, because none of them have really encountered this before. But she does feel like the one to beat.
I will say that the trainer, Mark Cassey, specifically said he would not mind a wet course for this filly. I'm not sure exactly what he's basing this on, but that is what he said. And I will, unless you get a huge rainstorm right before the races, the way that course is, it doesn't play like a typical soft course. They don't sink down into it as much as some places. The times can be a little bit quicker. I think it's maybe a little bit easier for some horses to adapt to than other turf courses that take a lot of rain.
And we can switch over to my grid for this race. And Marcus and I saw this race very similarly, just slotted the horses in slightly different categories. I've also got Nitrogen as a key horse. I agree. She's not going to be at a great price in this race, probably not offering a ton of value. She just feels like clearly the most likely winner. And I don't want to take a stand against a horse that I do believe is clearly the most likely winner in the first leg. Just the one other horse I want to use on the same tier as her is the number 6, Totally Justified. Marcus, I saw that you have respect for this filly as well. She's coming off a layoff, so that's the concern with her. She's got to be ready to fire one of her better efforts, facing a filly as good as Nitrogen coming back. But she showed some real talent last year as a 2-year-old, ran very well in the Jessamine, which felt like it was a decent race. We certainly saw Mayday Ready come back and flatter that form in the Breeders' Cup. And while Totally Justified was not as successful in the Breeders' Cup, the trip just didn't really work out for her. And she felt like a horse that maybe mentally at that time wasn't ready to handle that crowded 14-horse field. She had been a little green in the Jessamine, kind of veering in, interfering with some other horses at the start. And we saw that same thing in the going into the Clubhouse turn of the Breeders' Cup. She actually fouled the eventual winner, Lake Victoria. And I thought she had trouble. Maybe some of it was her own doing. But I watched some of her workout videos. It seems like she's training well for this return with the blinkers on. So I'm expecting her to run well off the layoff.
Yeah, I agree that she's the one that's not so obvious who has a chance to step forward. The trainer does really well with. I don't know what his numbers are exactly, but I know that he is completely capable of getting a horse ready to win a race like this off a break. And Keeneland's home track. He had a great meet there last year. I think she's going to run a race. Whether that's good enough to beat an informed Nitrogen who's been going already this winter, I don't know, but. If they, all things being equal, she's the only one I could imagine stepping up and beating the favorite. And of course, it's a turf race and the course conditions could be a little funky. That's why I threw in the other horses in a defensive spot that I thought had a chance to pull an upset, just because this is not a race where, I just think there are circumstances that could allow for a slightly illogical result.
Yeah, Marcus, I know you're more familiar with the fairgrounds form than I am, but the number 3 Fion, who I did put in the defense spot as well, I like the visuals of her races. I just didn't feel like she was beating the strongest fields, and maybe that Colony was as strong as what the Florida fillies have been facing. So that's why I've got her ranked a little lower.
You're right on there. And that's an annual thing. The horses, the 3-year-olds, fillies and colts coming out of the fairgrounds just generally don't stack up very well when they get to Kentucky for whatever reason, which is odd because, it is the middle of the country turf venue in the winter. But these horses just year after year are not especially competitive for the most part.
Well, let's move on to the next race of the sequence. And this one is a dirt race that was carded for the dirt and will be run on the dirt. Race 7 is the Grade 3 Commonwealth, going the 7-furlong distance. A 12-horse field signed on here. And Marcus, when I went to handicap this race, it looked like an enticing affair to go through because there's a lot of horses with familiar names and some that have run some nice speed figures. I'll say when I started to pick through the form and started to put the pieces together, I found it tough to really feel confident about anybody. I wasn't loving anybody in this race. And for me, this was the most difficult race in the sequence to make decisions about because I don't feel like I have a whole lot of confidence, number one, about who's ready to run their top race here, and also who's going to work out the ideal trip for themselves. And that was kind of the biggest concern for me with the number 2, Montalcino, who I do think in some ways is the horse to beat just based on his natural talent, but he's drawn inside with speed. He's got a fast horse right to his outside, an epic ride, including some other speeds in this race. So I just have some reservations about leaning too heavily on any opinions in this race. What was your take?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I kind of saw it more in a positive. Like I found it kind of an interesting race where there are some horses I'm curious to see what they can do. Montalcino is, specifically, I'm trying to beat this horse. I like him. I think he's an extraordinary talent, but you can see from his limited number of races and late start date, he's got he's got issues that prevent him from like being all that he might be. I do notice as well that they apparently skipped the final work with this horse after breezing him at Fairgrounds on the 22nd of March. If he were like trained by Dury Chavot and ridden by an obscure like Ukrainian jockey or something, and you were going to get 10-1 or something, I'd be all for it. But he's going to be like horrible value. DeVos horses are just getting hammered all the time. He's got flashy speed figures. He's got speed, a win over the track. I just think that he's in a tough race and with a bad post and with a lot of pressure to his outside. And I don't think he's going to be up to it. I'm just going to lean against him, and hope that his brilliance doesn't come to hit another level. I mean, if he can run better than he has, he might just shrug off all the other pace and win anyway.
Let's take a look at your grid for this race, Marcus, because I know you do have respect for the horse that's drawn right to his outside, an Epic Ride, who does feel like he's the main pace rival for Montalcino, and they've been really aggressive with this horse in his last couple of starts on the synthetic, and I don't think of Luan Machado typically as the most aggressive jockey, but it's been working for this horse recently, and he's been riding him, so I kind of wonder if they're going to use those tactics here with him getting back on the dirt.
Yeah, I think they're going to play the break probably, because this horse to me is completely capable of sitting off of it too. Maybe he's not quite as effective, but maybe he is. I think he's going to turn out to be a better dirt horse. And so I take those synthetic starts as a sign that he's really thriving right now. His bluegrass last year, considering he's a sprinter and that's a 9-furlong race, it was won by Sierra Leone with a good horse in second. I thought it was, I think it shows that the depth of his quality. I think, to me, he's like the opposite of Montalcino. He's got a lot more seasoning, a lot more foundation. You can see he keeps a busy schedule, so he's clearly sound. They can do a lot with him. He likes Keeneland, but people are not going to be latching onto this horse as a major contender. I think he's got every bit as much chance as Montalcino at least twice the price, with more tactical versatility too.
Yeah, he was a tough call for me, I'll admit, because I agree with you about his recent form. He's coming in with races that I think are just as good as Montalcino's. They're just on the synthetic, and I guess I'm not as convinced as you are that he's quite as good on the dirt. That Perryville Buyer came up very high. A lot of horses have regressed out of that race by 5 to 10 points. So when I take that race out of his past performances, it gives me some cause for pause. But I agree with you on the price. I don't think this horse is going to take nearly as much money as the other favorites.
Yeah, Brunacini was a lucky winner, and I don't think he's that good. Bocum Dano had declined at that point, but he still ran okay. The thing about this horse, though, David, is he was coming off a really long layoff. He surely needed that race. Yeah. And you can see that he just got tired at the end. I don't think that's his high water mark on dirt, but we shall see.
Yeah, and as you can see from my grid, I do have Epic Ride in the defend spot. I thought about using him more prominently. And I originally had Montalcino as a key horse, but the more I thought about it, I was coming to the same conclusion that you were, Marcus, that he's going to be such a short price. This is a confusing race. He's got those sexy running lines, a lightly raced horse that people think is going to become one of the top sprinters. So he just has overbet written all over him. And it made me want to lean a little bit more on the number 6, Hoist the Gold, who he's been around for a long time. He's a 6-year-old now, and we've seen him run some fast races in the past. I guess you always wonder if these horses are going to continue to hold their form as they get, into another season, as they get later in their careers. But I really liked what I saw from this horse's return last time at Fairgrounds. He wasn't beating the toughest field in the world, but I thought he won that race very comfortably and looked like he probably just needed the break after being campaigned so hard right on through the winter between 2023 and 2024. And they danced every dance, ran him in some races he probably didn't belong in. He got the time off, came back, and it seems like they're now going to keep him in sprint or one-turn races, which I think is best for this horse. And to me, he just fits really well here, and it's not like he needs some specific kind of trip.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I was against him in that Fairgrounds race because I thought he was cooked. He just was showing no spark at the end of his previous campaign. But, I mean, I'm not going to, I will call people out. They should never have gone to Saudi Arabia with that horse. I feel like it ruined his whole year and set him back. That's why it was great to see him run as sharply as he did at Fairgrounds, because it showed he still has it. And before he went to Saudi Arabia, he was in absolutely roaring form. Granted, he benefited from the track profile, winning his big race. But I think that he loves Keeneland. He's a little bit pace versatile. I have him as a key horse too. So I don't think he's going to be that heavily bet either. I think he's going to be perfectly fair value. He seems like a great horse to key on here.
Yeah, I think he's 9-2 on the morning line. That seems about right on him. And I think if we get that, that's value to me. A couple more horses I just want to mention, Marcus. The number 11, what you're talking about, is kind of one of the more difficult calls in this race because he's coming off this 106 buyer last time at Aqueduct. And I'll be the first to say, having watched a lot of Aqueduct, in the middle of winter, you do see some numbers get posted that you're always a little skeptical if they're going to get repeated on different surfaces. And that's a surface that the speed of it can change a lot just from within a day or from day to day. So he wasn't beating anything close to the level of competition he's meeting here. Clearly, this horse has some talent, and he showed it right from the start. And maybe things are finally coming to fruition for him. This just feels like an awfully tough ask.
Yeah. I'm told. I mean, the horse could trip out great with the wide draw and speed. He could stalk or press and do whatever the jock wants. I just don't think he's going to prove good enough, the speed figure aside. My this extra Neho is like the horse I just can't quit, because the thing about him, David, the reason I threw him in to the mix is because the race that stamped him as a serious talent was about this trip at Keeneland. And he's had some issues. He hasn't panned out. It seems like the longer he stays in training, the worse he gets. I think the time to get this horse is when he's fresh right now. I mean, he costs a lot of money. He's got some pedigree. They want to win a stakes race with him, and that's why he's back. And maybe he just can't do it. But I think whatever he can do, he's going to do it in this race.
Yeah, I've also got him in the used slot. He's a horse I really wanted to like more. I wanted to even upgrade him to a key horse. I just couldn't quite pull the trigger on it because, as you said, you want to see him show a little more, even during that entire 2024 campaign, going back to watch those races. I just wanted to see some of that old spark, and it wasn't quite there. But maybe, as you said, off the layoff, running fresh, we're going to see his best effort. That is the hope with him.
That's the one time I saw it, David, last year was his first race back. After that, it just wasn't there.
Let's stay on the dirt and move on to race 8. This is another grade 1 race on the card to go along with the Bluegrass, the Madison, going the same 7 furlong distance. This one for the fillies and mares, and only an 8-horse field, but certainly quality in this field. And you could see that with just the runners in here that have accomplished some nice things last year, like Scylla, Justique, who has refound herself sprinting, Mystic Lake and Emery have done battle as 3-year-olds. They're now 4. I feel like this is a race with quality, Marcus. I'll be interested to see, most of all, how this pace plays out, because it doesn't feel like there's that much speed in here to go with the number 8 Mystic Lake. And I kind of wanted to be against her because I don't love her form overall. And I feel like she's been the beneficiary of some good trips. But I kind of see another really good trip coming for her in this race over a course that can sometimes be kind to speed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you just summed up all my feelings as well. I definitely wanted to pitch this horse, and then I ended up, having to use her prominently. It just it doesn't make any sense not to use her prominently. She's got a lot of races that fit. She's been freshened and pointed here, just like Emery. I don't know who ran the better race in the inside information. I mean, the winner had to fend off of some pace and then turned back a Jody's Pride's run and then held on. Emery, for some reason, just came off the bridle at a really inopportune moment before the quarter pole. I thought she was toast. She came back on and she wins in another jump. The thing is, I don't really trust either one of these horses in the end. I think they're good horses, but I don't think they're proper grade 1 7/8 horses, one of the really good horses in this division from the last several years would whip these horses, in my opinion. And the pace scenario is tricky. It's going to be especially so for Emery, who's got some speed, but then she's stuck down inside. And you can see, by the way, I drew it up with my, key, use, and defend. I actually ended up wanting some coverage in this race.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. This is another race where I kind of had some trouble separating them. You've got Emery in there as well as Mystic Lake. I mean, you even threw Justique in, who I ultimately completely left off my tickets. And she... Yeah, because of the pace. I mean, she definitely has refound herself as a sprinter, but she's gotten pace to close into in those races, and I don't see it coming for her here. And we know it's tough to go from last to first to Keeneland, and she's going to be trying to do so.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I do think the 7/8 is better for her than the 3/4. And I also know that, she got a great trip at Oaklawn, and those weren't great horses. But I mean, the trainer from the start said that was just, she wanted to get her to this race and didn't want to wait all that time. So she, that was just like a workout for the most part, I think she's going to run her top race. The pace is against her, but she might have even more to give than we've seen yet. So I had to include her.
Yeah, the horse I found myself wanting to upgrade in this race, and not with like utmost confidence, but I just thought she'd be the right price, is the number 4, My Main Squeeze. Because when I was going back to appreciate some of her races from last year, I mean, she knocked heads against the best in the division, not just the sprinters, but she tried Torpedo Anna a couple times, Ways and Means. I mean, she has kept very good company, and she was very impressive when she won that Dogwood 2-back, albeit against a weaker field. But I even thought she ran an underrated race last time in the Raven Run, because that was a race where nobody really changed position except for her. And she rallied through traffic, through kickback to get all the way up for second behind Emery. And yeah, she was beaten a couple lengths by that horse. But when you take stock of both their performances, I thought that My Main Squeeze ran just as well. She's going to need some pace in this race, and we don't know if she's getting it. But if I was going to take a closer, I kind of wanted her at a better price as opposed to Justique. I know she's got the layoff to deal with, but just looking at her work tab, it seems like a steadier, more aggressive tab than you usually see from Mike Maker. So I wonder if she's primed for this grade 1 race to come back off the layoff. So I upgraded her to my key slot, just thinking she'd be value. I had to respect Mystic Lake for the reasons we talked about with regard to the pace. I've got Emery in there, and I didn't know what to do with Scylla. I mean, we'll see if she runs here, but she's a horse that's coming off the layoff, plenty of grade 1 experience. I'm still on the fence about whether or not I think that she's a true sprinter, because I liked her route races just fine. Yeah. And I think that she would actually be a nice router if they just took the blinkers off, because I don't think the blinkers are doing her any favors, but we'll see where they decide to go with her.
Yep. I threw Positano Sunset in. She's not good enough, but as I was saying before, this is a kind of race where I could see everyone not running as well as we expect. And she likes Keeneland. I think she's very well meant here. Like I said, not good enough if everyone runs their race, but I have a feeling that some horses are not going to.
Let's move on to race 9, the grade 2 Shakertown, back over to the turf course, we hope. And this one drew a nice field, so we hope that it stays on the turf, because this is a competitive race to handicap. It's a difficult one to slot into this pick 5 sequence. 11 runners signed on, and it's not like there's some standout among them, Marcus. I mean, I see that Our Shot is listed as the slight favorite on the morning line. And I mean, I get that based on his form from last year. I guess you have to decide for yourself how concerned you are about his return race at Tampa last time, which was pretty flat. Zach has run well over this course before. And then you've got the wild card Rogue Lightning. And I guess we can go right into your grid for this race, because I know this is a horse that you have some respect for.
I do like Rogue Lightning quite a bit. I mean, he's terrible out of the gate, which is not excellent for American racing. But I do think this race is going to unfold at a very fast pace. And I think they'll be coming back to him. This horse has run around a turn twice. He ran around a turn on synthetic a long, long time ago and didn't run very well, but that was the last start before a layoff. And then in Doha, he ran around a turn. And he tried to get out right when the bend started, but then the jock got him settled down, and he was along the rail. He handled the turn just fine. They kept him covered up till mid-stretch, and he had a really explosive kick. I think he might like a turning race like this. He's kept some really good company, David. I think if he runs the way I think he's capable of running, he's going to beat these horses.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to do with him because, and we can stay on your grid for a second, Marcus, because I've got some more questions for you. But just to finish up Rogue Lightning, he kept very good company. I really liked his form going back to 2023 as a 3-year-old. And after that, as I'm sure you know, he was purchased by Wathnon Racing, or purchasing a lot of horses all over the world. And you stayed with the same trainer. I don't feel like he had quite the same spark last year, even though, I mean, look, he ran second to Starlust, who went on to win the Breeders' Cup turf sprint, and he kept good company. I did not like the field he was beating last time in Doha, and to go all the way over to the Middle East and then back here. It feels like a lot of these decisions about where the Wathnon Racing horses run are more owner decisions than trainer decisions. I think we're seeing a lot of that. So I worry about what they're asking of this horse in terms of travel, but he definitely has back races that are going to be too tough for this field.
I do think that, I mean, yeah, they can be ambitious, but they're not crazy people. It's not a Calumet situation. And he's not going to be good enough for the Alcoaz on Saturday at Maidan. And this is big money. I mean, this is a bigger purse than this horse is going to get to run for in pretty much any race that he's going to be competitive in. I can see him why they're coming here. I don't think he's going to attract that much support. That's one reason I was higher on him. But if he gets bet a lot, I mean, in the win pool, you wouldn't want any part of him. But I think he's going to be fine for the pick 5.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the worst thing that could happen is having Flavian Pratt be named as the rider because he's going to pull in money probably just for that reason, which is the least interesting reason to like this horse. But yeah, that's kind of the unfortunate part of being a horse player. You like to have a good jockey, you can also get exactly. Marcus, we used very similar horses also in the key slot. We can go over to my grid, Run Carson and Think Big, and I'm wondering if we like them for the same reason. Run Carson, I mean, his form was just razor sharp at the end of last year. And he's not a horse that breaks from the gate that sharply all the time. His start can sometimes be a little unfocused, and that's a concern breaking from the rail. But synthetic, turf, his last couple of races have been strong. And if he gets out of the gate, I think he's a real threat to be forward and potentially be around at the end, because I know you say that this is a race that could be run at a fast clip. Coppola's going to be in front. He is just clearly faster than everybody else. And I guess Coppola being in the race just ensures a fast pace. But beyond him, I don't see anybody else that really needs the front end or needs to be contesting the pace, maybe aside from Run Carson if he breaks well.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I was overestimating. Yeah, I guess that's right. I guess that he is the clear speed. I don't like Coppola at all. He's a Gulfstream horse, not a Keeneland horse.
He's a 5 furlong horse too.
That's true. He will not be there at the end. But I agree with everything you said about Run Carson. He's really good. And I think he's going to be absolutely ready for this race. Maybe with maturity, he'll get better at the gate too. And Think Big. He's a really interesting horse to me. It's an angle that I love, that he switched to turf and he found his niche. He's 2 for 2. He had these huge runs at fairgrounds. And I know he's stepping up in competition, but in these turf sprints, as you well know, David, the difference between a pretty decent allowance race and a stakes like this is not that vast. Yeah. He basically just has to run about like he ran last time, and I think he's going to be competitive. He's got a wide draw, but doesn't really matter. He's going to drop back anyway, and I think he's going to be pretty much ignored in the betting.
Yeah, and the long stretch at Keeneland is great for a horse like this. I mean, similar to Fairgrounds, he needs that time to wind up, but I agree. He faced weaker company, but watching those 2 turf races, boy, this horse has quite a kick on him when he gets into the lane. So I respect him quite a bit as well. I don't know if he's going to be as big a price as he is on the line, because I think anybody that watches those replays is going to want to use this horse, but he's definitely one that I want to have in the mix.
These like Arshad and Arzak, they're going to take plenty of money, and I don't like these horses. Arshad had this little blip where he got better than he'd ever been at the end of last year. That's why I find the Tampa race like really negative, because I didn't think he was that kind of horse to begin with, and I just think he's fallen back to kind of where he was before. And Arzak's peak was, to me, like 2 seasons ago. He held on pretty well last year, but he's certainly not going to get any better this year.
Yeah, I don't think he necessarily has upside. The reason I did put Arzak in the key slot is when you look through his entire lifetime past performances, he almost always runs well in his first start of the season. He's just a horse that gets himself fit and runs well fresh. He actually won this race last year off a similar layoff. So not going to be a great price with Irad aboard, and I would tend to think Arzak goes favored in this race, but we'll see how that plays out. I didn't want to completely beat him out. Let's move on to the final leg of this sequence, the Grade 1 Bluegrass, the feature race on this Tuesday Keeneland card. And this is a tough one, Marcus, because really everybody in this field has a major question to answer. I know that Owen Almighty has already qualified for the Derby, technically having won the Tampa Bay Derby, but I mean, we don't know that he wants the distance. East Avenue has to show that he's still a racehorse. Chance McPatrick, distance questions. Burnham Square's got a rebound. And River Thames, I mean, I guess he's the reliable one in the race, having run well in every prior start. But again, I don't know if he's a horse that you can rely on to keep getting better as the distances get longer. So I'll be very interested to see how this field sorts itself out on the racetrack, and also how the pace of this race plays out, because I don't know if you have any respect for East Avenue at all, but the more that I looked at this race, Marcus, and I've got them all the way down to the defense lot too, as I think you do, and we can go to your grid for this race first. The more I look at this race, I wonder if there's a scenario where everyone just kind of disrespects East Avenue on the front end and they let him get his preferred trip. I don't trust him, but he does have a race in him that would make him tough against this field.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if he ran like he did in the Breeders' Futurity, I think he'd win. I just don't know what's wrong with him. I mean, maybe the experience of the Breeders' Cup just took the heart out of him, because he folded up like a cheap suit at the 3/8 pole in a race he should have been ready to run in the Risen Star. I don't like seeing that, obviously, but I can't totally rule out the possibility that he bounces back with blinkers and the lead. I mean, I would assume the intention is to put him on the lead. I think you want to keep this horse clear of other horses as long as you can. I think he'll be more intent on leading than anyone. And he's also a horse that, unlike Owen Almighty, I feel confident that if he actually exercised his entire breadth of talent, he can sustain a good pace over a 9 furlong trip. I don't think Owen Almighty can do that. And I don't know what they're going to do with River Thames. I don't think he's going to be ridden to lead. I think they're going to want to sit right in behind. I mean, sure, if the other ones take back, then he'll go. And how you view the end of his Fountain of Youth is maybe has a lot to do with how you view the horse. I watched it several times. The horse looked like he was uncertain in the last half a furlong, maybe a little bit more, just wasn't striding quite properly to me. And I think the jockey kind of reacted to that. The jockey kind of stopped riding him hard with 50 yards to go. And then I saw him look over at the screen, and I think he thought he had the race won. And then this giant horse with Godolphin colors comes roaring out of nowhere. And suddenly the jockey's going like, oh my God. So was that the horse being unfocused? Was it the jockey like being like a little bit too passive because he had an unfocused horse? Or was it a horse who was at the absolute end of his stamina range?
Yeah, watching back that Fountain of Youth, I think there's a key point of the race for both River Thames and Burnham Square, the other horse coming out of the race, who I know we both like in here. River Thames really was used aggressively in that third quarter to go after Neo Equos, and they really heated things up. I mean, you can see it in the fractions. They ran a 23-3 third quarter.
Yeah.
And I wonder if John Velasquez sort of underestimated how much that took out of River Thames and how much that brought Sovereignty back into the race.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the key point of the race for Burnham Square, who we'll talk about next, because Burnham Square kind of got dropped at that point in the race. They quickened the pace, and he was just unable to match the moves of others, including Sovereignty, and looked like he was going to be not even part of the superfecta by the time they were rounding into the stretch. And I did like the way he at least leveled off and stayed on at the very end of the race, and it seemed like he was finishing well across the wire. He galloped out strongly. So, I mean, the confidence I have in Burnham Square is 9 furlongs, perfect. It's just fine for him. He's going to get this distance. I guess we'll see how much this pace heats up and how much he needs it to, because at points in his career, he's shown more tactical speed. Just the last race, it gives me a little bit of cause for pause that he needs a setup.
Yeah. We had a back and forth about this horse after the Fountain of Youth, because I was so bitterly disappointed in his performance, because I really liked him to run back, improve on his Holy Bull, really. And I thought he'd beat those horses. I didn't think Sovereignty was ready. I thought he was like coming into the race best. And he reverted to his bad habits in that race. After they added blinkers, he got into the race sooner. He showed speed. He showed multiple moves. He was handy. He was with it. And then in this race, he just ran like he had before, where he lacked that handiness. And then when he got caught between horses at that point you're talking about, he sucked back out of there. But it's the last furlong in the gallop out that give me a little bit of confidence that he is still kind of the horse who I thought he was. He has experience at Keeneland. It was 150,000 claimer, maiden claimer, the horse that beat him, but it's not any great horse at all. But this horse did run well over the surface. And even back then, I mean, you can see why they ran him for a tag if you look at him. I mean, he looks like an $18,000 claiming horse just to watch him go in the shape of him. He's like the opposite of East Avenue. It's just this massive, gorgeous beast. But he's all racehorse. Even before his debut, I watched a work just out of curiosity in October, and his gallop out was absolutely extraordinary for a lower level maiden. He's a super, super stamina laden horse. No knock on the previous jockey, but I like the rider switch. I think that Brian Hernandez is going to fit this horse really well. The trainer said he had a truly excellent workout. The one at Churchill, he said he finished so strong. I had to go back with him. I picked him on top. And I kind of, the more I thought about it, the more I expect him to fulfill the promise I thought he had, going out to a distance he's going to love over a track he's run at before and win the Bluegrass.
And Bobby, we can switch over to my grid for this race. And big thanks to our producer, Bobby, who's been holding down the fort these past couple of weeks, doing fantastic work for getting these videos out to you and preparing graphics and everything along the lines that you appreciate on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. I do have Burnham Square as my only key horse in this race. And Marcus, it sounds like we're pretty much in agreement about this horse. I echo your sentiments about the progression and what we saw in the last race. I can't see video of the last workout, but I did watch the workout too back at Palm Meadows, where to me, he looked like a more engaged horse than we had seen previously. So I think that there are some signals that he is moving forward out of that race. So if there is any pace in here, I think he's the right horse to take, and the price should be fair enough. I think he's got to be at least the 4th or 5th choice in here. The one horse I don't know how they're going to bet is East Avenue. He's a real wild card from a wagering standpoint, but I do think we're supposed to get at least 4 to 1-ish.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think so. Chad Brown is insisting that Chancer McPatrick is a 2-turn horse. And I mean, I guess he's around the horse. I'm a big TBD. The horse I liked better out of the Tampa Bay Derby was the 3rd horse, Hill Road, who galloped out way in front of those other horses. And I thought probably needed the race as much as Chancer McPatrick. I know the track was there. People were saying it was speed biased. The trainer is still saying it was speed biased. If you look through the whole card, the first 5 races, I mean, half of the dirt races were won by horses off the pace. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's one of those tracks where the right speed horse can look really good. And I think it did flatter Owen Almighty, who got an easy lead. But I don't give Chancer McPatrick all that much extra credit for that performance. I think that kind of is just who he is.
No, I mean, he didn't have to show any stamina on that race because forget the speed track. The track doesn't matter to me. The fractions made it impossible to close, and Owen Almighty turned it into a sprint to the second half of the race to the finish, and you just can't close into fractions like that. So I still think Chancer McPatrick has some serious stamina questions to answer, but he's talented. So that's why I've got him in the U slot. I think you've got him in the exact same position. I don't think there's value on him. You know what? I suspect he'll be the favorite in this race. We'll see how that all plays out. But he's a horse that I respect from a talent standpoint, just not sure this is the right spot for him. Well, that wraps up our discussion of the handicapping. Let's recap by taking a look at our grids for this race. And Marcus, we can go to yours first. And, you know, I intentionally wanted to keep this discussion a little more handicapping focused than usual, rather than just talking about wagering strategy, because we don't know exactly how these surfaces are going to work out if they're all off the turf races. So we'll just handicap these races and we'll let people know our opinions and they can come up with the strategy. But this is how you're putting things together, Marcus. Talk a little bit about your grid.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 races to me that are the most obviously confusing are the Commonwealth and the Shakertown. But in both of those races, I like some horses, so I feel okay about them. It's the Madison is the race that I feel like is a minefield potentially. And that's why, even though I think on paper there are some horses that look, 2 horses that look more likely than others, I just don't think I want to narrow it down too much there. And, you know, we're ending on a race where I don't think Admiral Dennis has any chance. I don't think Render Judgment has any chance. But after that, I mean, I want to have a strong feeling about Burnham Square. I kind of do. And I guess you played it out more than I did. But I don't want to lean too heavily on a single horse in that race either.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, we view things similarly. We've got some different horses in different slots along the way, and we can go to my grid for this race. And I'm trying to keep things a little thinner in the key slot because, as Marcus was getting at, I don't feel so great about some of these horses that I'm keying on. They're just decisions I had to make. So I want to be open to potentially get in one of those defend horses, especially in a race like the Commonwealth, where I kind of pushed myself to key on Hoist the Gold, not feeling great about it. He was just the only horse I could make the case was going to be sufficient value. But I'm not going to be surprised when Marcus is right about a horse like Epic Ride, or if the number 11, what you're talking about, can pose a minor upset based on the last race. So I want to have them in there in the defense slot, not thinking that for me they're value, but I just don't feel so great about my keys in a couple of these races. The races that I really want to be right about are the Madison, where I think my main squeeze can offer a little value. I'd be happy to get her home, and especially as we close things out in the Bluegrass with Burnham Square. If I could get a live to him, I'd be happy with that, because he's really the only horse that I want to bet in that race. And if I could get a live to him in a pick 5 sequence, I'd be pretty satisfied. So that's how we're putting things together for this Bluegrass Tuesday. Marcus, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule, just reworking things with the postponements and all of that to do this video. I know the viewers have let us know in the comments they enjoy whenever you can appear on the channel.
This is part of my busy schedule, David, and I always it's elucidating having these conversations, so I get something out of it too.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in, and good luck if you're playing the race at this upcoming Bluegrass Tuesday.